Assalamu alaikum again. And this is our seventh discussion for the year. That means you're past the halfway mark. So if you, whatever you're doing to keep moving forward, just keep putting one step forward. We are so happy to have you here. You should be proud of yourselves, and we are proud of you as well. Nadia is our wonderful facilitator, and she will be continuing to facilitate to this month as well. So I'm just going to let Nadia have the floor. Go ahead, Nadia.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. It's great to see you all. I feel like now we're starting to see similar people and getting to feel a little more familiar with each other, which is nice. So for today's icebreaker, as you share out, if you could also share your name and where you're from. The question is, what color makes you feel the most calm and why? Okay, Sophia, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I don't know why, but and I'm wearing it today, black. It's kind of my safe color. So yeah, I wear it a lot of black. It's not very creative, but yeah.
No, no, no. What it has nice to say? No disclaimers or discounting. It is your safe color. That's what you are. Thank you. Eden S put in the chat, dark green makes me feel calm. I think maybe because it reminds me of plants and trees. Absolutely.
I'm gonna go with blue. Just calming waters. That's what it invokes for me, or a sky. Just like a nice afternoon.
Roshni put in the chat, Salam, I'm from North Carolina. Blue is my favorite color. Looking at the sky makes me feel calm. Similar. Fun note, if you've been to well, I know Kaiser does it. Kaiser, the medical facility. Anything that's been constructed in the last, what, 10 or so years, you'll notice they use a lot of the natural colors, the earth tones, the blues, the greens, the browns, because that does connect to nature. And when you're in the hospital, it kind of helps you feel calm. Let's go to Rabia and Nadia.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Rabia, and I am from Southern California, Orange County. And I think my favorite color is lilac. It makes me feel relaxed, especially when you see like those streaks of lilac, like in sunsets, like just the very light color. I find that relaxing. And I'm going to pass over to Nadia.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm normally in Washington, D.C., and today I'm in California with Rabia, and Rabia and I are sisters-in-law. So
Oh, how
she
nice.
actually inspired me to join this class. She did it last year, and she inspired me to join this year. And so it's nice to be in the same room as her today. And I would answer blue, like the sister who also said blue. But for me, it's the ocean. Just being able to look out at the ocean and see the vastness is quite calming. Thank you.
Let's go over to Gwen. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Gwen, and I'm calling from San Francisco, California. And the color that speaks to me the most is turquoise.
Oh. Yeah.
And it just because it's such a high frequency soothing color for me. So thank you.
Yeah. Kristen posted Salam, I'm in Seattle. I like lavender because it reminds me of the lovely scent and flower. And Krishna put, for some reason, I can't raise my virtual hand. My favorite calming color is lavender. And Krishna, where are you calling from?
South Pasadena, California.
South Pass.
Right down the street.
Right down the street. So let's dive in. So this week we wanted to do things a little different and give you guys a little bit of voice and choice, as well as time to think about some of the questions. So we sent out, I think, 4 or 5 different options on Slack, and people voted. So there's 2 questions, and I'm going to put this in the chat. Okay, can you see where it says question 1? You guys see that?
Yes.
Okay. So the first one that had the most votes, there was actually tied. The question is ingratitude the root of all evil? So I'm going to start by reading these verses. And after those verses, there's 4 different questions you could kind of consider. So you choose one of those questions to think about, and we're going to be sending you into breakout rooms to discuss. It's from Surah 16, verse 112. And God propounds to you a parable. Imagine a town which was once secure and at ease, with its sustenance coming to it abundantly from all quarters, and which thereupon blasphemously refused to show gratitude for God's blessings. And therefore, God caused it to taste the all-embracing misery of hunger and fear in result of all the evil that its people had so persistently wrought. Can you take them out? And indeed, there had come unto them an apostle from among themselves, but they gave him the lie, and therefore suffering overwhelmed them while they were thus doing wrong to themselves. And so partake of all the lawful good things which God has provided you for sustenance, and render thanks unto God for his blessings if it is truly him that you worship. All right, so here we have a town that is very prosperous. And it says it refused to show gratitudes for God's blessings, and they called this actually blasphemous. Okay? So the question from the curriculum is, how could the entire town be destroyed by ingratitude? Based on this story, what do you think the relationship between gratitude and belief is? Okay. That could be the first question you answer. The second question you could answer is, look at every problem you see in society today, or maybe pick one of the problems. In each of these scenarios, or in the scenario you talk about, who would need to be grateful and for what for each problem to be solved? Or you could choose to answer, how does gratitude affect people's behavior? Or you could choose to answer, how does ingratitude change believers into disbelievers? Okay, so we're talking about the idea of gratitude, the idea about good and evil, the idea of belief and unbelief. All right. So I've got those 3 questions in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and put the verses in the chat now as well, so you have it. Gwen, let's start with you.
We had a wonderful discussion, and the point was made that gratitude is something that people can fall in and out of every day. So it's not a steady state to be grateful or ingrateful. And that prayer can be a way of reconnecting with God, especially since the FARD prayers are 5 times a day, and we don't pray because God needs it. We pray because we need it, and it's a way of like regrounding ourselves to our own need to be grateful for what we have in our lives. And then maybe someone else from our group can chime in with a better summary. Mashallah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think I'll share something.
Go for it.
Thank you, Gwen. Yeah, Gwen was in my group. And yeah, like we did have a good discussion. It felt maybe too short, because Krishna was gonna say something too, but but yeah, like I think like, to me, when we talked about ingratitude, it was like jealousy, kind of touching on jealousy. So like, not having, like doing, I think I'm trying to keep it like focused on myself, but like, when you're looking at what other people have and like, oh, this person has this and their kid has this and they're married, or they have this amount of wealth, or they have a house, or they don't have a house, like doing this, like comparing and judging, other people's outsides and what other people have, especially materialistically, which, I grew up in a Muslim family, but like I grew up with that, like that, my family did that, like comparing, how well other people's children are doing, or like how high the marks are. Like what I'm finding from the Qur'an like program is that God doesn't care about any of that. God cares about like what's inside. And, all of that like has to do with ingratitude for me, because it's questioning what God allocates for people. Like God, in all of God's wisdom and power, and knowing us and our nature, and creating our form, and then creating the fulfillment of our nature, which is what the Quran verse the other day was saying. Knows what we all need, and gives us everything that we need at every point in time. And so like when we're like, why does this happen to me? That's ingratitude just on that level. And so I know that like I do that sometimes. Like that's part of I've done it in the past. And so um that's why we talked about it being like a state and how like, it keeps us humble because you can't be like, oh, these are disbelievers and these are believers and we judge the disbelievers. We say like, oh, if you're not doing this, 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 then you're a disbeliever. Like it's not like that. Like any of us can fall prey to that. And that's why we want to have like compassion, like someone mentioned, having compassion and kindness towards others because we're all in the same boat. So thanks.
What I
Thank you
was
so much.
going
Go ahead.
to say that I didn't finish saying quite in our group. I live not far from the Eden Fire area. So it's been interesting because I had to really wrap my mind around ingratitude because most of the people I encounter lately, there's very little of no ingratitude because so many people I know that are friends or members of my community or members of our masjid, which burn literally to the ground, and businesses are just grateful for being here and whatever they have. And I had the opportunity to go to lunch with one of my senior friends yesterday, and she was commenting on someone we know that lost so very much. And she said, well, Allah must love them a lot to test them like that. And so, I think ingratitude is hopefully a temporary state of mind for some people because there's so many things um, and so many demonstrations where you can be grateful and you can believe in Allah. And like Ariana said, the prayers, or maybe it was Gwenda said, just the 5 daily prayers sometimes interrupts those thoughts that would lead us to ingratitude. So
Thank you. Sakina.
I read a quote. It's by Dale Carnegie. I read it in some book. I don't remember what. It was a poem. It meant two men looked out from prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw stars. And I was thinking, gratitude is a lot about mindset. And I feel like if you're not grateful for what you have, you'll have a more negative attitude to everything. And you'll start being less happy. And you can't, if you're not happy always, it's not bad to be not happy always, but if you're never happy because you're always like, oh, I don't have this, or this, then it's not good for you. And also, one of the people were mentioning that gratitude can't solve all problems, but gratitude can't solve all problems, but it can change your mindset from thinking there's so many problems and we cannot do anything to thinking, oh, look what all these problems that we've already solved. Now let's work on solving more problems.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dr. Naomi.
Yeah, I just want to say that really was important what Sakina was saying, and I agree with her. The whole thing about mindset, and it goes both ways. It has been it's in gratitude if I see someone as less than me, and I'm also if I think that I'm higher than someone, that's a form of ingratitude. So it goes both ways. Um, if I'm thinking that someone is better than me, then that's really a form of ingratitude. So a lot of times we think that it is just one way, but it could be either way. It's how we see ourselves and how we see others. And that leads to the way that we treat one another. And it's really a form of ingratitude when we treat each other bad. And I think this is the basis of the social injustices that we see.
Did any group talk or based on these thoughts, can anyone think of a specific example? Oh, go ahead,
Nadia,
Frida.
sorry. Yeah, sorry, I didn't raise my
No, you're
hand.
fine. Go for it.
I think our group had Eden, Roshni, and me. So we talked about how Eden said that ingratitude leads to arrogance because you believe that it's all you, right? And that kind of like takes away any humility you might have. Roshni pointed out to all these billionaires we have nowadays who, think they're everything, and how they how they impact the society because of how they perceive themselves, and also just the mere fact that when you're arrogant and when you believe yourself to be everything, or uh, there's no solidarity with other people. So it's every person for themselves. So that's basically what we talked about in our group. Eden, if you want to add something to that.
Sure. I also liked Roshni's point in our conversation about how when you're grateful, you are also content with what you have and you're at peace in a way that is not possible if you're ungrateful. Yeah.
Fariha, you just underscored something that I had been thinking about because I was reading something in the Quran about arrogance, and arrogance being, I don't think it said the root of all evil, but it said like arrogance leading to evil. And I was confused because I was like, well, but this one is saying ingratitude is leading to evil. And I think you just connected it for me. So it's actually not different. It is ingratitude leads to
Yeah,
arrogance.
I
So
think
thank
the
you so much
credit
for
goes
that.
to Eden.
Oh, thank you,
She
Eden.
was learning about it.
But I think what a wonderful example of how we read something in the Quran and it's like, wait, this seems different and contradictory. But when we sit with it and process it and get all these different opinions, subhanAllah, it works. It comes together. Fatima.
Yeah, no, just hearing everybody's discussions, it kind of made me reflect on the verse a little bit more. Like Sakina brought up some good points, Fariha, Eden, everybody. And I was just thinking that maybe that village is more a metaphor for the actual human self, that we are just causing our own destruction. It's not necessarily the destruction of like an actual city or a village or something. It's like we are self-destructing because of ingratitude. And it's also a mechanism to destroy society as well. Like we were talking about comparison. I think Ariana brought that up. And all of these different, evils that are rooted in ingratitude. I mean, of course, it's normal. Everyone falls prey to ingratitude, but it's just, I think, just hearing everybody's thoughts and, all these different things that can span from just that feeling or that sentiment. So yeah, I think that just made me reflect on the verse a little bit differently. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you so much. Dr. Naoya.
I was just wanted to comment on Fatima's what she was saying there. That really hit home about maybe it's a metaphor for the people. And the example that came to my head was the problem that we have with environmental decay because we have been ungrateful for all that we have, for the water, for the air, for what allows bless us with. So we can easily be destroyed by that ingratitude.
If I might make one more little comment, sometimes I think ingratitude really has to do with people not understanding or respecting that there's a higher power. So when I was raising my kids, I wasn't Muslim and I didn't, I always took them to church. I was Methodist. I was a lot of things anyway at various times. But I told them, look, what's important to me is that there's a higher power. I'm not going to tell you what you have to choose. But think of it this way. Why on earth would you want to live your life thinking that you are in charge? Because if you think you're in charge when things go wrong, then you're beating up on yourself. You're ungrateful, obviously, because something has happened. But who are you going to blame? I mean, and it's not that we would blame Allah or our creator, but it's like, the grasping that things will happen. But you don't focus on what happens. You focus on what you have and what you're still grateful for. But I think when you don't have any regard for our higher power, just my opinion, then you internalize too much and you think it's about you or it's about somebody else, and you're looking for someone to blame when it's a circumstance and a circumstance that can be corrected.
That's so true. And that gets me thinking about, you know, when we think about what's going on in the world today, when we think about what's going on in Gaza, for example, and people who are starving to death, and it's like, how do we say be grateful in that situation? And Krishna, I think you so beautifully put it right now. It's not even about what we have or what we don't have. It's about that there is a higher power. Be grateful that there is a higher power that is looking out, that there is justice coming from that higher power. And that really does, to me, kind of change the way I even think about these catastrophic situations where there seems like there is no good coming out of it. Wow, that's what a conversation. So as I said, when you all voted on what topic you want, it was a tie. So let me share topic number 2 that was also tied for being people wanting to talk about this. And then I'll put it in the chat after I share it. This question is called, What Would Mary Do? So Maryam alayhi salam is described by God as the best of women. And in this verse right here, Surah 3, verse 42, it says, And lo, the angel said, O Mary, behold, God has elected thee and made thee pure and raised thee above all the women in the world. So she's ranked above all other women. She is formally defined as someone who never deviated from truth. And that's this Surah 5, verse 72. The Christ, son of Mary, was but an apostle. All other apostles had passed away before him. And his mother was one who never deviated from the truth. And they both ate food like other mortals. Behold, how clear we make these messages unto them. And then behold, how perverted are their minds. Okay, so we have two things. She's ranked above women and she never deviated from the truth. So that leads to a series of questions. And here you're again going to choose which one your group wants to talk about. There'll be new groups. We'll mix it up again. And I have 3 different topics on here. Your group can choose which one. You don't have to answer all of them. Don't try to answer all of them. But pick which one really stands out to you. So if we're saying Mary, this ideal that we have of someone who never deviated from the truth, the first set of reflection questions is on ourselves. And just reaching inward to think, how often do we deviate from the truth? And in what context do we do that? Or you could think about how honest are you with yourself? How honest are you with others? Do you ever avoid or bend the truth to fit what you want? And in what ways are you currently following in Mary's footsteps of authenticity? And what ways do you need to improve? So I'm going to put this first series of questions into the chat. You could also reflect on your relationship with the Qur'an. When you read the Qur'an, do you look for ways to stretch, skip, or blur God's words so that they match your own personal desires? Or do you fully submit and allow all of God's words to shape you in new and beautiful ways? Meaning, do you always speak the truth even against yourself? Then they have a couple exercises we can do. It says, be like Mary, ask God to help you increase in truthfulness and honesty in your relationships with yourself, God, and others. Journal as much as needed in order to regain clarity and honesty with yourself. When Mary is afraid, she seeks refuge in God's specific name, the most gracious, showing us where her mind was, even in the face of danger. Add her phrase from 1918 to your repertoire of chronic phrases to use whenever you need. So I'll put that into the chat. Oops. So you may want to talk about your own self-reflection. You may want to talk about the relationship with the Quran, or your group may want to reflect on society. So this question is, what happens when women and girls are taught to be dishonest or silent about their negative feelings? Who is impacted when women suppress the truth in their relationships with spouses, bosses, relatives, friends, etc.? Which industries profit off of pressuring women to be dishonest with themselves about how they naturally look and feel? And here there was a link. I don't think you can see my verse, but it's a link to a book called The Beauty Myth: How Images of Beauty Are Used Against Women, and a feminist critique of society's obsession with flawless women. And then lastly, how does honesty protect women and what makes it difficult? So because I didn't want to box you in, I've given let's see, a series of questions. So before we go into breakout rooms, take a second. You can either think in your head, you can journal it out, you can speak out loud to yourself, whichever your style is. But look through these reflection questions in the three areas of self, Quran, and society, and just think to yourself what your thoughts are. So I'm going to give us about 3 minutes to just reflect on our own. All right, so welcome back. Aliyah Jung, do you mind if we start with you to let you finish the point
Yeah,
you want?
they were just, we are in the group, we were just talking about not really protect, but what should action can we take in the when there are crises or anything like that. So since I heard about Hazrat Ibrahim, that when he was put in fire, he directly called Allah and said that Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. So I'm being trying that in my daily life. Whenever I'm stressed out or in a situation where I feel the negativity around me and I need help, so I start reciting that in my heart, and that is very helping me to overcome the feelings which I'm having at that moment.
Thank you so much. And can you repeat the phrase you said and what it means in English?
Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, that Allah is sufficient for us and He's our friend, wakeel, lawyer.
Beautiful.
I'll share.
Okay.
I had a really good chat with my group members, and we chatted about the questions relating to society and how what happens when women are not honest about like negative feelings. And we basically said that it causes a lot of inner tension and it leads for the relationships that we have to not be as satisfying, like with our friends, our spouses, bosses, whatever it is. Like there isn't fairness and like the ability to lend support if you can't be honest about negative things that might take place and like able to share for them to be resolved, basically. And Maggie made a really great point. She said societies stagnate when women aren't allowed to be honest about things that deserve being called out and then, fixed. Yeah, I thought that was really big.
Thank you so much. Anyone like to build on that?
I'll let, it's not really building on it, but we talked a little bit about suppression of anger and how that kind of warps our behavior and affects our bodies and sometimes leads to depression. Yeah, how it can create a gap in relationships. But we also spilled over into talking about how to be honest. Well, you can't always be 100% honest in, like, say, a work setting. And so, what do you do when you can't necessarily share your emotions, that you might be having in the workplace? And in some ways it's dishonest, but it's also not necessarily appropriate. So yeah, we were talking about that.
So let's dive into that a little bit. So you started talking about anger and the suppression of anger. And that's a big one, right? In society, women are taught, don't be angry, don't show anger, stay calm. Um, what is it about? You also mentioned in the workplace showing emotion is looked down upon. We know workplaces are historically uh, favor and are built around men. So, what is it about emotion that is so scary? This woman displays emotion. This is bad.
It seems like a lot of times, and I think the messaging might come from men, that if you're emotional, you're not rational. And so they are equated.
Mm-hmm.
And so why would I show emotion if I'm going to be seen to be irrational when I do it?
I
You're
just
so, go ahead.
well, for me, like, I would just be really interested in, they say like if you could go back in time, who would you want to meet? I would want to meet Mary because I wonder what a woman who, according to God, is, never deviated the truth from the truth. I wonder what that looks like because I feel like the messaging that I was always told, and I've crossed into different cultures and different communities because I'm, Muslim American. And so like I've been fed different like ideas of what a good woman is. So like a good Muslim woman, is someone who like wears a headscarf and stays at home and raises the kids and just smiles and listens and doesn't show anger and doesn't really, speak out or argue with anybody. And it's just and like for me, I couldn't that I mean none of the ones that I've been fed like fit for me. They're too uncomfortable. It's a lot of it is being submissive, and like I don't even know what that really looks like, just
Mm.
because I've just been kind of given the same message a little bit in different forms, but it's the same thing. It's like, somebody who just is the giver and, but also silent, like, puts herself aside and is always selfless for others, and so like, yeah, so I think to me, for now, for me, it's like being as aligned with God as possible and how I can serve God in every area of my life. And for me, that's the truth. That's the truth.
Mm.
Truth is more than just being honest. It's something else. It's like God says in the Quran, we created the heavens and the earth with the very essence of truth. So that's something different.
Mm.
That's something that we got to talk more about because I don't think it's very simple for what that is.
So what could it look like? Those are great questions. And you're getting a lot of, I'm seeing a lot of hearts popping up all over the school, all over the screen. I think that really resonated. Go ahead, Gwen.
I shared a story that is sort of related in terms of um, a time when I had to show physically speak the truth or stand up to someone who was terrorizing another woman. And it was on a bus here in San Francisco, and I was seated next to another woman who wasn't Muslim, but there was a man who was sadly, had something wrong with him or was deranged, but he was threatening people coming down the aisle of the bus. And the woman next to me started shaking. And she said, I've been raped and I can't take this. And I just put my hands on her shoulder and I said, Sister, you know, don't worry. He won't get to you because he'll have to come through me first. And I won't let that happen. And at the time, I wore niqab outside. And so I just stood up and he came towards us, and I was just kept repeating inwardly, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, La ilaha illallah. And our eyes met with myself with the man, and I just stared him down, you know, and I just said, God help me, you know, don't let him come through me, you know, don't let him pass. And I didn't stand in his way. I was still in my seat, but standing. And he just turned and he got off the bus. And I can't explain it. You know, it had to be God that did that, you know, not me, because I'm not a big woman. And, you know, so I think that for me, being able to express my truth just physically without even words was one of the most powerful experiences of my life, you know. And then, of course, the woman next to me was crying and needed reassurance and everything, and I was able to help her with that. But yeah, that was an experience for me.
I'm just letting that sit for a minute because that's powerful. You know, I'm connecting to what Ariana said, and she said, my truth is with God. And what you just said, you described a very physical situation of you would think in a bus like that, what you would need to overpower that person is somebody with physical power, right? And you described yourself as you know, I don't know if that's necessarily me, but by just connecting to God in that moment, God is the one who has that power. So I was connecting that, and then I'm connecting back to what Maine was saying about workplaces and how for some reason in this culture we think emotion is here and rationality is here, and they're two separate things. But who said they're two separate things? You know, who said that rationality alone? Uh, can anyone think about something in the Quran? Because it's really, I think Ariana made a really good point that we need to see what this looks like. This other type of world order, you know, and that's the point of a Qur'an Literacy Program, that we are talking about these voices coming together. We're centering around a story like that Gwen just shared with us. But through this, we are really thinking about this other type of world order. So when we think about rationality and emotion, or you know, physical strength, or just belief in ourselves versus belief in God, um, can anyone think of anything from the Quran that talked about, is it better to be rational? Is it better to be emotional? Or is that a false dichotomy? Anything come to mind?
I think that's kind of a tough one, but I do the other night I was reading about fear with the story with Moses.
Mm.
That section where she's talking about, you know, um, that part.
Mm.
So
Mm. Yeah, well, in that story, it described his fears. It doesn't describe him as just having rational thoughts, right? I don't know in the Quran if emotion and what was the other word we're using? Rationality are a gendered concept. We've made it a gender concept in the American workplace.
So far I haven't seen anything about saying like, separating emotion and rationality either, because it was just sort of like fear not is what I had read last night. I wish I remember all the details, but it was, I think like it's sort of the sense I got was like panicking, or like when you become so afraid that you just like can't think, you know?
Mm. Mm.
So that's when it was saying like she was asking the question in the curriculum, like why was he, the reference to like fear not, or don't fear, like what do you think that's referring to? And so that was
Mm.
what made me think about emotion. But like I think the Quran so far has been pretty humane in that it's not
Mm.
saying like you should not have fear, you should not have anger. Like it describes all these emotions, and it
Mm.
it never like uses that to admonish anybody.
Yeah. Fatima, I want to ask for a follow-up on you're asking a really good question. Is it a different world order or strategies for situations? Because Mary alayhi salam was part of this dunya. Do you mind expanding on that?
I mean, I think Ariana brought up some good points. And unfortunately, we did ran out of time. She was part of our group, but I think a lot of the good discussions we had also from Krishna were about like the corporate world and a lot of the things that other folks on this call also said, right? We can't really always bring our authentic self because there's so many things stacked against us, especially as women of color in corporate environments. But like, I was just thinking, right, sure, maybe it was different in Maryam Islam's time, possibly, but it was still the dunya, right? It's the lowest of the lowest worlds, right? So the expectation for me is like, well, she probably had, similar or even different challenges, but still there must have been challenges, right? Because we're not in heaven. So I was just trying to reflect on, what Ariana was saying, and I'm like, it would have been so great to have a mentor like her if she was here, because we could all kind of see how she navigated those challenging situations, because I suspect, she had challenges of her own to navigate. I mean, and also, like she didn't have a patriarch, like she didn't have a husband, right? So, and then also being a single mother, like there's just so many layers there, of challenges and difficulties. So, yeah, I was just reflecting on that. I don't have the answers, right? But that was just something that was popping in my head as we were going through these discussions. I mean, I certainly could, as Ariana said, could benefit from having that type of mentorship or someone guiding me, in these difficult situations. So, yeah, that was my only point because, I don't know that her life was less challenging. I suspect the challenges may have looked different, but I don't think it could be less because, we're still here. We're all still here. So that's just the point I was trying to make. So just something to reflect on.
I was just going to chime in and say that I think the dichotomy between rationality and emotionality comes from the Greeks, and obviously the Quran was revealed after them. So it abrogates Aristotle.
But you're right. Yeah, it's come from the Greeks. But let's go over to Krishna.
I couldn't think of a surah, but Google is my friend. So I Googled something, and it's Surah 41:53 states, "We will show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth." And so how that I think kind of resonates when we were talking about sort of corporate environments. I said, you try to be authentically yourself. And I was, uh, if Fatima and I were in the same workplace, I want to have more discussion with her, to encourage her, don't let the situation color who you are. So I think we try to be as authentically as ourselves as we can, and we show our truth in the way that we would show our truth. So an example would be when I first started working at the place I worked, I had a manager. No, she was my coworker then. And she was telling me stuff about what was Islam because she found out that I was Muslim. I wasn't, I didn't really tell her. I think somebody told her or something. And I said, no, that's not correct. And she said, well, my pastor said blah, blah, blah. I said, no, that's not it. And when she insisted, I said, well, show me the verse. Do you have the verse? What did your pastor tell you? Bring me that. And so over time, we became very good friends, not because I was arguing with her or we were having these discussions every day. It's just that I tried to be as authentically myself. So whatever apprehensions she had about Islam from this very Christian place she was attending at the time, she could see, oh, I'm not a scary person. I'm not whatever it is you think I am. And occasionally she would, run something by me. And, one time I think it was like, well, are you going to celebrate? I think it was Diwali. And I said, and was still newish Muslim even myself. I said, I'm not sure what that is. And so, I do the Eid, Ramadan Eid. She said, well, that's Muslim too. I said, I don't know. I said, let's look, So that's an Indian, observance, but it's not Muslim, but it's okay. We should all be happy for everybody's celebration.
That got me thinking, and as we near time, we are talking about Maryam alayhi salam as someone who never deviated from the truth. Now remember, when Isa alayhi salam was born, she was not allowed to talk. You remember that? She couldn't go out and proclaim her truth. So it's so interesting to me to think it wasn't about her going and proclaiming from the rooftops, this is what this is. And maybe for those of us in the workforce, it's not about us in a traditional way saying, say this about, do this about emotion and this about rationality. She had to live her truth, even though she couldn't talk. That's just such an interesting dichotomy dynamic to me. Sakina, close us out.
This is it's not related to the discussion, but I noticed a lot of people are like apologizing for what they're saying. Like they'll say something and then they'll be like, but I don't mean it to offend people. But I think you shouldn't say stuff and then change it to make other people happy. I think you should be proud of what you say and stand by that, not just apologize for to other people.
Wow. We heard it here first, folks.
Very good.
That is standing in our truth, Sakina. You're right. So it is now 6:30. I'm smiling with this discussion, and it's such a powerful group to be able to discuss it. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for authenticity and showing up, for having both the will and the having both the will and making the effort to come here. So Dr. Nadia, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. I am so filled at this moment. And I just want to say it's an honor to be in community with you all and just keep reading what you're saying, what you're thinking, what you're reflecting on is very significant. This is a type of thing that can change the world. So just keep doing what you're doing, and we will see you next time. Our next discussion, number 8, will be September 7th, I believe. And the curriculums have already gone out, and the questions should be going out in a week or so, a couple of weeks. Okay? So thank you for being here, and we will see you next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam.
Thank you, Nadia.
Thank you.